Hey everyone, Zion over here from Nintendo Life. Today, I want to chat all about Switch 2 physical games because I don't know if you've looked into it at all, but it's very confusing. You could spend an hour or two digging into this stuff and it still won't make sense. You'll find roads that lead in different directions constantly. And today, I'm joined, of course, to chat all about it by Alex and Felix.
Hey yo, paisanos, what's good?
Alex, are you looking for the road?
I don't know what I'm doing.
Alex just aged 40 years. 50,
What
60
is this,
maybe?
a YouTube video?
I just want to keep buying physical games, guys. And I feel like Nintendo is giving us every reason to not do that.
I wouldn't go that far. I think it's mainly a messaging thing. Anyway, explain the situation before we start.
Sure.
Before we start going into details.
Sure. So Nintendo, from my research, is going to be offering 4 different ways that they're going to be bringing physical games, quote unquote physical, to retail. And it's just messy. The messaging, it doesn't make sense. You know, we have people out here reaching out to Nintendo customer support and they're sending mixed messages. We have games like Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart World, and that Cyberpunk CD Projekt Red have come out and said that their games will be physically on the cartridge, no downloads to start at least. But then you have a lot of developers opting to do the game key route. And
like
you guys know about
Street Fighter.
Yeah, so you're right. Street Fighter 6, Bravely Default, even No Sleep for Kaname Date, the AI Somnium Files 3 game, are all going to be game key titles. So game keys, which you please don't buy these. That's not Nintendo Life saying it. That's just me saying don't buy these. Game keys are a physical Switch cartridge, a Switch 2 cartridge, right, like this, that you probably shouldn't lick. I wonder if they're going to taste different, by the way.
Oh, they've said that they're still bittered, but I am going to be going a
But
deep
is it a
dive.
different kind of bitter?
Yes, you
Right,
know, sort of.
right.
Well, this has got more of a oaky notes and a sort of a. It's almost sort of a summer berries as a finish.
Yeah, so Game Key tastes different than a normal Switch 2 cartridge. So a Game Key is going to be a cartridge in a box, but it won't have any actual data for the game on it. It's basically just like from my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just like a license to play the game. So you put it in your console, it downloads everything onto your internal or micro SD express card, and then you have to have the cartridge in every time you want to play the game.
Yeah.
Now we've reached out to Nintendo for comment on like if these are going to be resaleable, if they're going to be tied to your account, if they can maybe they only have 20 different accounts they can be played on in their entire lifespan. We don't know. There's all these questions we still have, but that's what game keys are. It's basically, 30 years down the road, when you pop a game key in your Switch 2, you might not be able to play it because the servers might be down or whatever. But then you also have, guys, they've confirmed dual releases. This is the entire reason I wanted to make this video, is because, so Nintendo has come out and they've announced that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and Kirby Forgotten Land and even Mario Party Jamboree are all getting Nintendo Switch 2 editions. Now they're getting physical releases as well, and they've said that those games are going to have the Switch 1 version of the game on the cartridge, and then also the update for the Switch 2 edition. But that's kind of caused some of us to wonder, like, does that mean that, like, is the Switch 2 going to be a download? Is it going to be a code in the box? Is it going to be a Switch 1 cartridge in a box? Is it going to be a Switch 2 cartridge? Like, we don't know. Have you guys heard anything different than that?
Well, the thing is that we've had a number of different people have been reaching out to things like Nintendo customer support and things like that, which is Nintendo sort of, but it is. I don't want to discredit talking to support or anything like that, but it's not the same. They're not necessarily going to have the same information as, for example, Nintendo Company Limited. If you were to get in touch with them directly, if you spoke Japanese, they will, maybe have a different, sort of a different level of understanding. And it is, if you're just told, hey, this will have the Switch 2 version on it, you go, okay, but you don't know the specifics necessarily. But from what I would assume, and this is an assumption, is that there is essentially on the cartridge, it's not 2 copies of the game. You've got your Switch 1 version, and then you've got the extra stuff, almost like patch data, on there as well. And so you plug it in to your Switch, and it just plays the Switch 1 version. Boom, just goes straight through. Switch 2 version, it goes, okay, it's got little flags that say, when you're looking for this, actually fetch this from the patch data. And it's going to pull from that because it's Nintendo Switch 2. It'll just recognize what it's been put into first, and then it will run the necessary code. I don't think Nintendo would release a physical game for Nintendo Switch 2 that doesn't have the data that you've paid for it on there. I know lots of other companies would, and I'm not saying it's impossible that Nintendo would as well, but I think it's very unlikely.
Yeah, and you said there was 4 different games, and this was the 3rd one, if I'm correct. I'm just trying to
You're
keep
right,
track
yeah.
of it. So
Yep.
the 4th one, which is probably why a lot of people clicked on this video, because it's what we put in the thumbnail and title. Apparently, you'll be able to play Switch 2 games on your Switch 1.
Yeah. It's so what we've heard officially now. I've dug into on Rune
Not
Factory's.
not the Switch 2 version. I saw Alex make a little face there. Specifically, if you buy the Switch 2 version, you'll still be able to play like the Switch 1 version if you put in the Switch 2 cartridge.
Yeah,
on the
and
Switch 1.
we don't have a ton of information yet, like based on a bunch of other, how other developers are going to handle this. We don't know. But what we do know, at least with Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, which is also a launch title for Switch 2, this game is going to be a dual release. So to break it down, they're releasing a physical Switch 1 version of the game. For I don't remember the retail price, but for $10 more, you can buy the Switch 2 version of the game. But that also Marvelous has come out and said, like in an FAQ on their website, they said there's no need to download the full game. Simply insert the cart into either a Nintendo Switch or a Switch 2 console, and the correct version will launch automatically. So now we at least have confirmation from someone that some Switch 2 games will be playable on Switch 1 if they have a Switch 1 version. So that leads me to wonder, is Nintendo going to take Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, not off the shelf, but are they going to stop producing Switch 1 versions because maybe these Switch 2 releases will, as they say, have the Switch 1 version on the cartridge, and then will those be playable just then on Switch 1? We didn't really see that in the past with stuff like 3DS, right? Because they always had that little like arm kind of sticking out where you couldn't put it in an original DS.
And we thought that was going to be the case, at least I thought that was going to be the case with Switch 2 games. Everyone was, it's going to have a little thing so you can't put it in. But apparently you can just put it in a Switch 1 and with some games, we would like to know more. But I think that's really, really interesting that newer games, if it has a Switch 1 version, you'll still be able to play it on a Switch 1. You can lend it out. Let's say you have a friend who only has a Switch and you want to lend out Rune Factory, Azuma, blah, 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 blah. I am so good with titles.
Guardians of Azuma.
Yes, exactly. Good we have you here, Alex.
You got enough of it too. So.
But yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's great. And if that's how it works with Nintendo, like with Breath of the Wild, I could see them. You ask, are they going to take original Breath of the Wild for the Switch down? I could totally see them doing that. One, because it's more expensive, the Switch 2 version.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is I don't know why it's now more expensive, but that's a chat for another time. But yeah, I was really surprised to hear this.
I suppose in my mind, the way that I'm envisioning this is that you have, if you think of it more like, if you go back to, we'll say the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 era, in theory, you could, I don't think this was ever done, but a disc from a PlayStation 2 will go in a PS1. There's nothing stopping you. It's not a different shape, I know, obviously, that they had some copy protection and stuff like that, but physically putting it in there, that is not... It's fine. It will just go in, but it won't work. It'll say, I don't know what to do with this, or maybe it pops up saying, this is a PS2 game, you lovely silly sausage, but I doubt it, because this was before patches and firmware updates and things like that. But in this instance, it's essentially like you're getting a cartridge. We'll just go back to cartridges rather than using the disc. And you plug it into your Switch 2, plays the Switch 2 version, plug it into your Switch 1, you got the Switch 1 version. It's essentially, because they're basically the same game, as I say, it's that patch data. So it's got a separate pool that it will pull from in terms of like files and things like that. Again, this is only speculation. Please don't take this to the bank. And So there's nothing to stop you from just plugging that straight into your Switch 1, and it'll just use that base file without all the lovely extras and things like that. I think that would be 1, the easiest way to do it, 2, the simplest way to do it, and 3, it would, just be easier from a consumer level as well. Not to say that there isn't confusion. I'm not saying that, and certainly for the average consumer, because, if you're watching this video, you're not the average consumer. The average consumer is going to be far more confused overall. And Nintendo could be a lot clearer with their messaging, to say the least. But yeah. I've seen some people talk about there's a small physical change with the cartridges. One of the, I don't want to say legs, but like one of the rails that slots it in.
Yeah, like right on the corner or something of the cartridge.
People are saying like, oh, will that do something? I honestly think it'll do absolutely nothing. Because Switch 1 games work in, there are going to be red cartridges for Switch 2 that work in Switch 1. There are going to be grey cartridges, for Switch 1 that work in Switch 2. They have to be interchangeable. That extra bit of leg, I don't know, maybe it's just a little switch for the Switch 2 to say, this is a Switch 2 game, because there's a little micro switch that is pushed down by the Switch 1 cartridge saying, I'm a Switch 1 game, just, go back in time. That's the only thing I can think of.
Actually could speak with that voice. That'd be lovely.
Well, maybe you're right, though. Maybe there will just be a simple little mechanism in there that tells the console that this is a Switch 2 cartridge, so play the Switch 2 version, please. And then maybe there will be a way to deactivate that and trick the Switch 2 into playing the Switch 1 version instead. Oh, boy.
But the thing is...
Hopefully not.
For me, I think that that's a flawed system, and I don't think Nintendo would do it. Because already, one of the most delicate parts of any console like this is where you put the games in and out of, because it has to be mechanical. There's a lot of movement, a lot of friction, a lot of things moving about in there. I mean, not loads, but comparatively, there's a lot. And so, if that's going to wear out, you're going to plug a Switch 2 game in, and it may go... Or rather, you plug a Switch 1 game in, and it goes, oh, this is a Switch 2 game, and it gets confused. It makes way more sense to just have an identifier, like, in the software, like, on the thing that just says, I'm a Switch, whatever, So I don't know. Maybe they're doing that to save money on plastic. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll just have to rip an entire Switch 2 apart just for this sole tiny thing.
You can do that. I'm not going to bother.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm so good. Let me have.
What do you mean? Your Switch. Launch Switch? You don't want to rip and tear it apart?
We have jerry-rig everything to do that.
Yeah, there are people far more qualified than us who'll do, that sort of thing. Who will be able to put it all back together with all the screws.
True.
I took a Wii apart and put it back together recently. Not that recently. Late last year.
Change the shell. That's right.
Change the shell. And at the end, I was like, great. I looked at it, I had like 6 screws left over, and I'm like, it'll be all right.
Just don't shake it around. I bet it'll be just fine.
Yeah, it's not moving, so it'll be all right. It won't load games now, but
But Sion, you said there was more information about this fourth way of playing games.
Yeah, so there's also the fact that some games you have No Sleep for Kaname Date is releasing on Switch 1 and Switch 2. The Switch 1 version, from what I've seen, because how Switch 1 games, there were some like Mortal Kombat, Overwatch, where I think it was a cartridge, but then only part of the game was on the cartridge.
Yeah.
Right. So you still had to go download stuff. So we don't know if this is the case for this No Sleep for Kaname Date, but the game is getting a Switch 1 version. We don't know anything about that one yet, but the Switch 2 version is a game key release. So what I'm really curious about is if games like that will have an option still to upgrade either for a fee or for free to the Switch 2 version. Because I think in this case, if I were to buy No Sleep for Kaname Date and there's the game key version and the Switch 1 version, I think I'm just going to, as long as I can upgrade to the Switch 2 version, I think I'm going to buy the Switch 1 version instead, because the data is actually on the cartridge. It's something down the road that I can actually play, and there's still so much we don't know about the game key, if you can sell those off or trade them in or borrow them to friends. There's just so many questions still unanswered. But yeah, I'm very curious. I've reached out to the publisher of No Sleep for Kaname Date as well for clarification about the Switch 1 version, and if there will be a cost to upgrade to Switch 2, and I imagine we'll share it on the website if we learn more about that. But it's just it's so confusing. I know that we live in a world now where there's tons and tons of updates that are required for games, and it's easier to push those updates out. And I know it's nice. In our interview with Nate Bildorf, he said that we just want to give our third-party publishers options, but it just feels like there's so many options now, and I don't like it. I don't like the fact that I don't know if a game is going to be a game key release, and that's important to me. I don't know. Is all of this confusing to you guys? Is it important? Does any of this upset you, excite you? Where do you kind of fall with buying physical games on Switch 2? Felix.
Here's my stance on it. I cannot have a stance on it before we know the prices on the eShop itself, at least in Denmark. Because to me, I'm gonna buy what's cheapest. And right now, physical is freaking expensive. It's really expensive. Yeah, it's really expensive in Denmark, and it feels like they just upped the price like $5. I don't know. They're still figuring out what to price these games. If it's the same on digital, I'm gonna of course just go physical because it's really nice to have. But if it's like, I don't know, $5 or $10 difference, it's gonna muddy the water, especially since the Switch 2 has a lot more storage just out of the box. I can just download the games. You don't have to worry about the cards and stuff. It's the age-old conversation. Should you go digital and should you go physical? I was very, very digital in the start with the Switch, and then I went to physical. And I really liked that you had the whole game on the thing, and you can just boop. And I liked that I could share my games. And now they are introducing this digital game share here in this month. I'm excited to see how that works, and just, is that a nice solution? How seamless does it work to share a game? And I think that's where I am right now with physical or digital. I do have a little bit more to say about the matter, but Alex, whoa, what are you gonna do? Oh my God.
What am I gonna do? I'm largely going to go physical again, wherever possible. I'm aware that, sort of there are advantages to digital that, physical doesn't have, and vice versa and stuff like that. But I'm an old-fashioned sausage, I am. I like to be able to hold the game in my hand. And to be honest, even a game key to me is arguably it's marginally worth more to me than a digital game, because I can't just have it downloaded and just play it whenever I like. No doubt I'll have plenty of digital games as well, because there'll be plenty of games that don't get physical releases. But for me, physical is usually cheaper in the UK anyway, because it's usually full RRP on the eShop, and sort of retailers like Currys, Argos, Smith's Toys, they're all trying to undercut each other, and there's, usually it's by like £1 or 50p or something like that, but that adds up, it becomes cumulative, and you end up getting it for, I don't think I've ever paid full retail price for a Switch game, with the exception of maybe Metroid Prime Remastered, but that was cheaper anyway, so I wasn't fussed either way. But I don't think, certainly for a full-priced retail game I've ever paid RRP. Not for a very long time, anyway, and certainly not on the Switch. So I'm going to go physical, assuming that carries on. Which we don't know for absolute certain, but, if I just go to Currys and see how much a Donkey Kong is. Mario Kart World is £75 on Currys, which is a lot of moolah. It's apparently also out of stock, so perhaps it's not going to be as nice as that, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. It's a tough thing, because, you're right, having something like Mario Kart World or Animal Crossing or Smash, downloaded on your console, and being able to have that ease of playing it, at any point, not having to swap the cartridge out, not needing to make sure you brought it along on this road trip or whatever, is nice. And I think I'm also probably going to end up being pushed into buying a few game key releases myself, even though I don't want to. And you see some instances like Street Fighter 6 on Switch 2 is the same price current like MSRP or retail as it was back when it launched, but now it has 2 years worth of DLC. So I think, and even Bravely Default is a game key release. It's being released at $39.99, which is probably the same price it was on 3DS back in the day, but has some added content.
You can't tell me they couldn't get that on a cartridge. It's going to be Diddy.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel weird. I'm very curious to learn more and more about why developers are choosing to go with Game Key. I don't know if we'll ever learn that, but we have an interview in progress.
I think I have an answer.
Oh, is he going to
money?
Hey,
we have an interview in progress.
It's always money.
Yeah, we do have an interview in progress with CD Projekt Red about Cyberpunk, and in that interview, we asked them about why they chose to release Cyberpunk on a 64 gigabyte cartridge when we're seeing a lot of other developers go the Game Key route. And that interview is not, we've not received answers yet, but we'll share that down the road. So follow the website, bookmark it. But yeah, it's interesting.
Alex reminded me of money. I just wanted to quickly, because we of course know that Switch 2 games will be more expensive, but Switch 1 games, as Alex said, they would often be cheaper physically. Like in Denmark, I'm just gonna convert the prices into American dollars. You could find games for like $61, like full retail, like AAA Nintendo games, all the way down to $53 sometimes.
Oh,
Mario
interesting.
Kart World converted is 107 United States dollars in Denmark.
Oh my gosh, currently.
The jump is so big, where I really hope the digital games are maybe a bit cheaper, because that's a lot of money to spend on a video game.
Yeah, that is what 20 US dollars more. That's insane. And everyone over here is complaining. We're babies.
Way more than 20.
Went from 60 to 109.
61 to 107, yeah.
I just mean in comparison to the Switch 2 current prices, like even like US Mario Kart World is 80 US dollars. But yeah, you're totally right. In comparison, it's
everything is just more expensive in Denmark, so it is to be expected that it's more expensive. But yeah, Switch 1 physical games were always really cheap. So it's really,
it sounded comparable, even cheaper. Yeah, at times.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see with prices. One thing I'm really curious about is to see, will you be able to really see on the home menu, okay, this is a Switch 1 game and this is a Switch 2 game, because it's something on PlayStation 5. You can download the PlayStation 5 game and it'll have the PlayStation 5 logo, or you can download the PlayStation 4 version. Like when I bought Metaphor for the PlayStation 5, you could download both versions if you bought the game. And some people actually downloaded the PS4 version because it ran better in some instances. I don't know why, but it was
really interesting.
Yeah, so some people were playing the PlayStation 4 version. Yeah, I'm just excited, curious, I think is the right word, to see how it will be.
That'll be really interesting. You're right, though. Like with Rune Factory, as an example, once again, like if you put that into the Switch 2, will you be able to choose to play one version or the other?
Yeah.
I think the notes that I have here says that it will launch the correct version automatically.
Okay.
But it'd be cool if you were able to choose for instances like that. I had no idea about the Metaphor example.
Oh, imagine if there was like a button combination you could hold down, like a hidden button combination to launch the Switch 1 version for like debugging or something. That'd be great.
Yeah. Do you guys know that the Wii has a safe menu?
What do you mean?
Like a debug? So the Wii, I think it's if you hold the start button and the select button, or the start button and the one button or something like that, for like 5 seconds on the start menu, it boots into safe mode, which is like I don't really know.
I didn't know
my Wii got like busted up back in the day, and I could only boot up into that mode to play my Wii games back in the day. So I just random tidbit.
Fun.
But
I like that.
Well, speaking of safe mode and Wii, it's probably time to. It's a safe time to wrap this chat up. Needless to say, it's confusing. This chat went on way longer than I imagined, which.
That shows how confusing everything is. We needed to clear it up just for each other.
Well, hopefully we get more answers down the road. Hopefully Nintendo can find the time to get back they can reply to our emails. Hopefully CD Projekt Red will give us some answers. Marvelous and just publishers just need to be more transparent. Just tell us what's going on and stop the Game Key nonsense. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Alex and I will probably buy them, but we don't want to. Let us know your thoughts about game keys, about dual physical Switch 2 game, Switch 1 releases, digital game prices. Let us know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, then why don't you double check that subscribe button, see if it's a Switch 1 game or a Switch 2 game. And are you even subscribed? It's worth looking. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life. Thank you, Alex and Felix, for joining me for this chat. Stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.